Well, it's time now to take a look at what's grabbing headlines around the world, and for that I'm joined on set by Alison Sargent. Hi, Alison.
Hi,
You're starting with the latest on the Khashoggi affair, with US President Donald Trump saying he believes that the Saudi journalist is dead. He's also threatening severe consequences if the Saudis are found to be behind his murder.
Exactly, a sign perhaps that the United States president is perhaps hardening his tone towards Saudi Arabia. Although the question that's worth asking is severe consequences for whom? Because the New York Times has an interesting article today reporting that Saudi Arabia has been setting up an intelligence official to take the fall for this scandal. His name is General Ahmed al-Assiri. We see him here. He's a high-ranking advisor to the Crown Prince, Mohammed bin Salman. Putting the blame on him would help deflect it from the Crown Prince, the paper writes, an effort to sort of quell this international crisis. And the paper reports that Donald Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, has really been pushing for Donald Trump to stand by the Crown Prince. Whether or not this plan to deflect blame will work remains to be seen, according to the paper. They say lawmakers on both sides of the aisle have really been growing increasingly horrified by this scandal, putting pressure on the president. Many cartoonists, meanwhile, though, have been pointing out that that anger from the Americans is a little bit hypocritical. You can see here in the Philadelphia Inquirer, this cartoonist comparing so-called Saudi instruments of diplomacy. On the one side, we have a bone saw allegedly used to massacre Khashoggi. This is deemed uncivilized by the Americans, while U.S.-made bombs being dropped on Yemen, well, that has so far been considered by the U.S. to be A-OK. Similar idea in another cartoon from Politico. In this one, we have Uncle Sam sitting by while Saudi Arabia bombs Yemen with U.S. weapons, but Uncle Sam is horrified by this report that he's reading on Khashoggi.
Moving to Algeria now, where the government has banned women from wearing the full face veil while at work.
Right, the reason behind this decision that the government gave was for identification purposes. They said that people must be able to be identified while at work. It's just part of professionalism. Algerians are divided over this decision, according to the Algerian paper Al Watan, although people who support it point out that most Algerian women don't actually wear the niqab anyway. Algerian society is pretty split between moderate and more radical forms of Islam, and this could be seen sort of as a step towards the more moderate side, a sign that mentalities are changing, but only a little bit, at least according to one cartoonist. If you take a look at this cartoon, Hexi Algerian says, we see there, this man is saying to his wife, "Good news, you no longer have to wear the niqab in the kitchen, which is your only place of work."
Aha, so moving over to Spain now, where the city of Barcelona has finally issued a building permit to one of its most popular tourist attractions.
Right, it only took 133 years, but La Sagrada Familia finally has its building permit. Gaudi's famed basilica is on all of the front pages today in the Catalan press. El Periódico noting that it took that incredible 133 years to legitimize the basilica, 133 years and 36 million euros. That's how much the basilica is going to have to pay to the city for that permit over a period of 10 years. That money will go to things like public transport and accessibility improvements. It also means that La Sagrada Familia will finally get finished. Construction began in 1882. They're now hoping to have it all done by 2026, which is the centenary of Gaudi's death.
Yeah, it took a bit of time, didn't it? So a posthumous building completion for Gaudi, but here in France, papers are marking another posthumous event. That is the release of a new album by the rocker Johnny Hallyday.
That's right. This album was released at midnight last night to a lot of fanfare, many fans lining up outside of stores just to be the first to get their hands on it. As you can see, the press is really going all out as well. Libération here writes that Johnny is même pas mort, basically he's not dead, and the paper is actually sort of undecided over whether all this ongoing craziness is actually such a good thing. They say it's really an example of the infinite exploitation of stars that we see nowadays, releasing to the public any leftover pieces of their work that can be found. And the paper says in some cases, like with David Bowie, well, that was a good thing, but in other cases, like with Michael Jackson, maybe we would have been better not to have those extra albums. For fans, though, it is part of the mourning process, and so far the reviews have been pretty positive. The Parisien says, "What a voice," in their headline on their front page today. They say that those who have listened to the album already have said that Johnny's voice is more powerful and moving than ever, although that could be the grief speaking.
Very possibly. One more story from you. A quick word about Jamaica's national women's football team, which has been celebrating their World Cup qualification.
Right, it is their first ever World Cup qualification and the first ever World Cup qualification of a women's team from the Caribbean. That's why the Daily Observer is calling them history makers on their front page. This is actually Thursday's front page. That qualification happened Wednesday night, but it hasn't been making that much noise outside of Jamaica. Inside Jamaica, though, this is really a huge deal. Another paper, The Star, is headlining France again because next year's tournament is going to take place in France, and again because it was 20 years ago that the Jamaica's men's team qualified for their World Cup for the first time. 20 years ago, the World Cup was also in France. So possibly an auspicious sign for the Reggae Girls, as the team is called. It's worth noting also, Haxie, that they've had a lot of support from Bob Marley's daughter, Cedella Marley. She is the team's official ambassador and has been really helping them raise funds.
Good luck to the Jamaican women's team. Alison Sargent with the press review. Thank you very much indeed. You can catch this press review as well as many others on our website, france24.com.